Hello, welcome. My name is Lauren with Lauren Teaches Flute. Today we're going to talk about all things practice journal. I'm going to show you one of my first practice journals that I really started back in 2005, and I'm going to show you how I use a practice journal today and how and why it makes my practice more productive, more effective, and more focused. Before I get into this topic, I invite you to subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you here, and also want to let you know that I do offer private online Skype lessons. So if you want to learn more information about working one-on-one with me, I'll leave a link to that info in the description as well. All right, so let's get into this video. I'm gonna go ahead and change the camera angle so you can see the table and I can just show you the journals right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with one of my first practice journals. I probably started doing this when I know that I started doing this when I was a senior in high school. But this is probably the second one that I ever started. So this is what it used to look like. So I was very focused on the amount of time that I practiced. I thought if I practiced a lot that it was better. Like the more I practiced, the better. But I practiced a bit. I feel that I practiced a bit much for. It was like the only thing that I considered. There's so many more things other than just the amount of time when it comes to practicing. But basically, the main gist of it, which I still use today, is I write down the date, the time, and what I'm working on. So this is breathing bag, probably, long tones, something called Technique 1, rapid scales, Taffy-Go-Bear, exercise 12, which is arpeggios, and then I would go into maybe some etudes. This is orchestral excerpt right here, and Rheinica was the piece I was working on at this time. So that's what it used to look like, and let me show you how I've changed it today, although that is still there. The way I write the date and the time, the times and the amount of time I practice circled at the end is still there. So I'll go ahead and write the date, and then I would write objective, or you can write focus for the day, and write down something you'd really like to accomplish for that day. Something that, I mean, if you got it done, you'd be really happy. So you can keep it short. You can keep it like one thing, or maybe two things, maybe three. And then write down the estimated time that you have for that day. So I'm gonna write in some examples pretty soon. And then you can write out a little rough plan for how you're going to go about doing this. So the focus for the day, let's say it's a piece called Der Freischütz. The theme and variations, I'm going to work on the triple tonguing part at the end. It's like on the last page. So maybe it's just feeling a little bit sloppy and I don't feel confident on it. So I have about, maybe I'll say 1 hour. I'll say 1 hour to practice for this day. Now, there's other parts of a healthy practice session. So if you're a beginner, you're not going to add all this in right away. But if you're been playing for a while, a good balanced practice session will have some kind of work on the fundamentals and tone, and just working on the mechanics of flute playing. And I usually start with long tones of some sort, or harmonics, or you could work on vibrato. Then you could go into some kind of moving the fingers, so scales, arpeggios. This can also include articulation and all that kind of stuff. Then etudes is another thing, study pieces, and then you could then do orchestral excerpts or solo pieces or repertoire. So 4 components that are usually there in a well-rounded practice session. So let's just say the plan for the day, since this is what I'm working on, triple tonguing, then I might make sure in my technique practice I'm working on triple tonguing. So I'll work on the Trevor Y book, Articulation, and work on the triple tonguing. And maybe I have a set speed that I would like to get the triple tonguing up to. So I would write that down, whatever that speed was in the metronome. Maybe it's like, I don't know, 144. Maybe that's what I'm trying to do. So I make sure I include that in my technique practice. And I might decide how much time I work on that as well, or just roughly, oh, maybe I can work on that for like, maybe even like 45 minutes if this is my main goal for the day. Wait, I only have an hour, so probably not that much. Maybe 25 minutes, okay? And then maybe I'll work on the piece for 25 minutes. Gosh, we're already at 50 minutes. An hour is not very much time. And the other 10 minutes I spend on tone and scales. So that might be what my practice plan looks like for that day. So then I'll write down the time. Okay, it's 5:56. So then I'll work on my long tones, scales, or whatever. I can be more specific, but this is something I'm just using as like a brief warm-up on this particular day. And I might underestimate. I might be able to practice more than an hour. I mean, you can set a timer to keep yourself on track with how long you're spending on each thing, but I don't use one unless I'm doing like really specific work on one of my pieces or study pieces. But if I'm not too attached to the hour, I mean, I'm not gonna force myself to stick with it. So just write it down, however long. Maybe I work on it till 6:11. And then I'll go ahead and do triple tonguing. And any notes that or observations I have, this is a small page, but any observations I have about my triple tonguing, or even questions that I have, or I'm wondering about, or a problem that comes up, I'll write it on the right side. Or if I do something really good, I'll write it on this side, and I'll be like, oh, I did this and it really sped up my triple tonguing. Or, anything that comes up, I write it down and make notes about it here on this side as I'm practicing. And then maybe I finished that early. Maybe it's 6:30 and I can spend the rest of the time on the Der Freischütz last page. I think it's on the last page, the part that has all the triple tonguing. So then I would work on that. I would write down anything that I wanted to remember for the next day or any observations I made. And then maybe at 7:07, I stop. So then I would write down how much I practiced. Okay, so I practiced actually an hour and 11 minutes for that day, and I'd circle it, and just to see how much, I don't know, I always do that. I've always done that, and I still do that to this day. So then the next thing I do with my practice journal is I write down what I liked. I don't write down the questions because I kind of memorized it, but I kind of say something that I accomplished that day that, it kind of makes me feel good, like I'm making progress. So what I liked. The second thing is what I learned, or, maybe a difficulty, or maybe something I discovered or figured out that day that, something clicked for me. Or maybe it's like I learned that I really need to focus on this. I need to really just focus on something else, a specific warm-up or something. And then tomorrow I look forward to, but this is basically just setting up a game plan for the next practice session, because we can forget. So, yeah, just write out your practice plan for the next day. So what I liked, what I loved here, what I learned, and tomorrow I look forward to. And then you're already focused on what you're going to be practicing the next day. So if you want to do the lazy version of this, you can just look at what you wrote, on number 3 the day before. And, maybe, so on June 9th, I could just get right into it. Maybe 10 o'clock a.m. I'm starting to practice, and I'll just get right into it because I already have an idea of what I want to do. I've already made a plan. But you can still do this if you want. You can still write down, okay, my focus, the time I have, this is how I'm going to do it, But sometimes you can have a pretty good idea and you can write it down at the end of your practice session from the previous day. So take number 3, and then you can just get right into the time. Okay, I did long tones, I did 10:30, I did scales, 12, whatever, that's a long time to practice scales. Maybe I also write down if I take a break, break. So then 12:15, I'm going to do maybe I'm working on an etude piece and I want to get that up or whatever it is. And then I'll work on solo pieces, repertoire, etc. And I just write down hours and minutes that I practice each day. And I think it's really important to write these 3 questions. And of course, save the other side. I did it kind of different today to be quick and show you an example. But if I have a big notebook, I'll use the left side for the time, the right side for taking notes and writing down any little aha moments or things I learned, things I feel like I'm not including enough of in my practice. I'll write it all on the right side of the page. Or if it's a small book like this, left side is for the time, right side is for the notes and observations. So that's what I do, and it keeps me focused. It keeps me, on track, and I can also see how long I'm spending on something. So that's good information for me too. And if I want to adjust the timing of it, I can. And this is what I've been doing for, I guess, the past, is it 17 years? Something like that. This is different from how I used to do it. Like I said earlier, it was all focused on time, and I thought, I guess I just need to practice more because I'm having trouble with this. You can see in the last book, in this book, and sometimes when I did long tones, I would write things like frustrated or, I was just upset at the way I was sounding, but I wasn't doing anything constructive about it. I was just kind of kept practicing more time. With this, I can write what I'm noticing. So if my tone isn't sounding good, I can be like, I noticed this about my tone. It feels like this when I play. It looks like, it sounds like. I become a little bit of a scientist, and I'm trying to really learn about what I'm doing. And then I can also write, I noticed when I did this adjustment that it had this effect. And it might sound like it's getting too technical, but you don't have to write down every little thing. You can just write down the key points that you're noticing. And if you have a question, like, I don't know how do I just get this excerpt in tune? What's a better way for me to do this? You can write that question down. You don't have to have an answer for it, but just, you can write all that stuff down. That's something you could really sit down and think about, or you could even do a little bit of research on new intonation exercises if you want, but this is just so you don't forget anything, like this whole right side of the page, because we forget so much when we practice, and then we end up just repeating mistakes or kind of practicing aimlessly, so I really like to take note of everything, and I feel like it speeds up my productivity, speeds up my progress, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, it just feels like essential, like I've got to have a practice journal anytime I'm sitting down to practice, especially if it's for something big like a recital or an audition of some sort. All right, so I hope this video was helpful and informative to all of you. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe below for more tutorials and videos like this one. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you in another video very soon. Until next time, take care. Bye.